Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The Alberta government announced that more police officers are being brought in to deal with the transit violence in both Calgary and Edmonton. Many First Nations communities will be receiving compensation from harm done to children of the on-reserve child welfare system. And former U.S. President Donald Trump, who pleaded not guilty to 34 criminal charges, defiantly spoke out against his accusers.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The Alberta government wants to add 100 new police officers to strictly deal with transit violence in both Calgary and Edmonton. Premier Danielle Smith says she directed Public Safety Minister Mike Ellis to get officers into high-crime areas in both cities. Provincial data shows that between July and January, Edmonton's light rail transit system saw a 75% increase in criminal activity, while Calgary saw an increase of 46% between 2021 and 2022. Premier Smith says more police are needed right now.
Police officers whose sole duty will be to patrol streets and ensure that people are protected. Our government has also been empowering dozens more sheriffs and peace officers to begin getting things back on track, and we're committed to doing even more. The number one job of all governments is to keep the streets safe and protect people. There is no higher priority.
The province is also encouraging both cities to transfer command and control of transit peace officers to their municipal police services. The province also announced an investment of $5.3 million over 3 years to expand eating disorder treatment for both youth and young adults in Calgary. Officials say the new program will establish 12 new publicly funded community-based beds, increasing treatment capacity by 200% while supporting 72 additional young people annually. There will be no fees for Albertans to access the treatment. The province says those between the ages of 13 and 24 with an eating disorder can be referred through the Calgary Eating Disorders Program. The average stay for patients is around 2 months. The Alberta NDP is demanding that the UCP MLAs denounce Premier Danielle Smith's phone call with Calgary street preacher Arthur Pawlowski. Justice critic Irfan Sabir says Smith owes an explanation for why she had a phone conversation with someone who is facing 2 criminal charges in connection with a Coutts border protest and a speech that he gave. Now here's a portion of that speech from Pawlowski during the pandemic.
Where is Trudeau, this coward snake? Where is this viper hiding right now? See here, for the first time in 2 years, you have the power. You got the power. They have the guns, yes. They have the tasers, yes. They got the military, but I'm telling you, it's all useless when the millions will rise up. Tomorrow you have thousands of Albertans coming. And Saturday, thousands more will come. Who can stop masses like this? Who can stop 10, 20, 50,000 people? Who can do such a thing? No one.
Now, NDP Justice critic Sabir says Pawlowski's speech at the Coutts border was an overt threat to violence.
He calls for a revolution and suggests that his actions are to prevent his children from being enslaved. He brags that he has lost count of all the criminal charges he has faced. He tells the crowd there that there are not enough RCMP officers or military personnel to stop them. He calls the member of Alberta law enforcement gangsters, the biggest mafia. And he tells the crowd that some might, and I quote, pay the price, end quote.
The NDP claims that Premier Smith was sympathetic to Pawlowski's case. They say Smith was in contact with prosecutors almost weekly before telling Pawlowski she expressed her dissatisfaction with the tactics of the Alberta Crown prosecutors to the Deputy Attorney General. Premier Danielle Smith said a review found no evidence of contact between her office and the prosecution service. Now, Bridge City News had a chance to reach out to street preacher Arthur Pawlowski and asked him specifically who released the video of the phone call he had with Premier Smith to the NDP and the media.
Who took that video footage that was leaked?
Again, it's before the lawyers, so I can't comment. I wanted to do a press conference. I was advised not because of the announcement of the premier. So at this time, I wish I could come and tell the people the whole story. But at this moment, I have to wait what Premier Danielle Smith is going to do. So we gotta wait.
Do you think somebody was trying to sabotage you?
Oh, 100%. I mean, come on, it doesn't make any sense. You got to remember, when I joined the party had only a few hundred members. The moment I joined, it was 3,000.
Pawlowski will have to wait about another month to learn his fate following his February trial on charges of mischief and breaching a release order. He also faces a charge of willfully damaging or destroying essential infrastructure. Well, we had sunshine mixed with cloud today in Lethbridge and slightly cooler. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, that warming trend we've been waiting for so long is on its way to the tune of double-digit temperatures for much of southwestern Alberta.
Yeah, we just need to get past this evening hell, and then it looks like smooth sailing as we get into those lovely temperatures for the rest of the week. This evening, as I mentioned, we could see a slight chance of flurries mixed with some showers, about a 30% chance. Overnight low of -4, going to feel like -12 with that wind chill. And then Thursday, oh boy, look at that. We're into the teen temperatures already, 13 degrees for a high, sunny skies. After that, we're looking at a beautiful long Easter weekend. I'll be back later in the show to give you all those details, and here's a hint, it's going to get warmer.
I can't wait. Thanks so much, Jeanette. A number of our First Nations communities will be receiving compensation for the harm caused by the federal government's underfunding of the on-reserve child welfare system. Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu says the revised settlement agreement amounts to just over $23 billion.
The revised agreement, as I said, isn't going to make people whole. No amount of money can make people whole, but it is an important piece of healing because it's an acknowledgement of the discrimination. It is a total of just over $23.34 billion at this point, and it includes First Nations children who were removed from their home and placed in care that was not funded by Indigenous Services Canada. These were the elements that were under dispute under the last settlement agreement. It includes caregivers of children who were impacted by the government's narrow definition of Jordan's principle. And it includes the estates and parents and children who would have been eligible as one of the classes for compensation.
Now here's a follow-up to a story we first brought you on Tuesday. A man who sold a woman opioids in southern Alberta that led to her dying of a fentanyl overdose was sentenced to 4 years for manslaughter. The body of 34-year-old Tia Blood was found last October near Colehurst in Lethbridge County. 20-year-old Hunter Alexander Frank was sentenced Tuesday in Lethbridge Court. The court heard that Blood, who was a recovering addict, bought the drugs from Frank and then overdosed and died in her truck. Frank then wrapped her body in a tarp, dumped her body in a ditch, and then emptied her bank account. Lethbridge City Council voted 6-2 on Tuesday afternoon to look to help from the Alberta Sheriff's Department in dealing with tent encampments in our city. In the summer of 2022, there was a shooting at a tent encampment located near the Civic Centre track. Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Hagan has written a letter on behalf of the city asking Alberta's Public Safety and Emergency Services Minister Mike Ellis for assistance. The motion is asking for help to start in May for a 6-month trial period. Hagan said there isn't a planned number of Alberta sheriffs that would come to the city, but the officers would work hand in hand with Lethbridge Police to help curb crime at the encampments.
They don't work apart from them. They want to make sure that they're all working together on a collective goal, and so of dealing with the issues that we have at hand. But it's important that they do work together, and so of course we're going to forward the letter and the information to the Police Commission to make sure that they're aware of this. I did speak with the chair of the commission yesterday as well, and that is of incredible importance so that they're all on that same playing field, and we know that the work that's being done within our community.
Councillors Belinda Croson and Jeff Carlson voted against the motion. The Lethbridge Curling Club says they're pretty excited to have had Council show their support for the club to go out and bid on the 2025 Canadian Olympic Curling Trials. Kirk Mearns with the Curling Club says it will be great if the city is able to land the Roar of the Rings trials. He says it will really help put Lethbridge on the map even more following the Tim Hortons Briar last year.
Briar was such a good event and was so successful here, both for putting Lethbridge, exposure of Lethbridge financially. It was just a great event, and coming off of that, and we thought it was really important that we bid on something right away, and the Olympic trials seemed like the one to get.
City Council voted unanimously on the decision for the $900,000 bid during Tuesday's council meeting. Mayor Blaine Higgins says it was a very easy decision for the council members.
When you have previous events of this caliber that have come to the community and you see the economic spin-off. So for example, as I mentioned with the Briar, there was over $10 million of economic activity. And you got to remember, this is coming out of COVID, so it was a really good positive thing to have within our community, because the week before we didn't know if we were going to be able to have fans in the seats. So it was to that point within a week.
Bids for the trials must be submitted by the end of June, and Curling Canada will announce the host city in November. The Lethbridge Hurricanes are facing elimination following a 6-2 setback to the Moose Jaw Warriors on Tuesday night. Game 4 of their WHL playoff series continues at the NMAX Centre on Wednesday evening. If the Canes are able to pull out a victory, the best-of-7 affair would head back to Moose Jaw for Game 5 on Friday night. By the way, Lethbridge is 8-14-1 all-time and 23 visits to the Moose Jaw Event Centre. Speed skaters from Lethbridge proved that they are some of the fastest in the country. Members of the Lethbridge Speed Skating Association competed in the Western Canadian Youth Short Track Speed Skating Championships, with several skaters receiving medals. Lethbridge Speed Skating Executive Greg Ogilvie says the young athletes did quite well.
We had 4 skaters from Lethbridge who were skating in the event. So we had a girl in the female 11 division, 2 in the female 12 division, and then 1 in the male 13 division. In total, so the male, Gavin Ogilvie, who's my son, he won 3 gold medals. So he won the 400, the 800, and the 1500. He also came in first in the super final for the 1000. And then his teams also won the relay races as well. So he had a really successful weekend. Then we had Zosha Edelman in the 12 division, who won a bronze medal in the 1500. And then all 3 of the other skaters, so Zosha, Claire, and Zoe, all won their super finals. So which meant that they won a signed book that was autographed by Katrina LeMay Doan, who is a former gold medalist.
Now, with this final competition, the Lethbridge Speed Skating Association has officially wrapped up their season. Peak Elite Cheerleading from Lethbridge recently took home some nice hardware at the Stampede City Showdown Championships in Calgary. Every team placed first in each division. Samantha Parody, the head coach of Peak Elite Cheerleading, told us it's been an amazing year for her team.
Within cheerleading itself, the basis is sportsmanship. And I preach that to my coaches, my athletes, their families, and that sportsmanship really defines our gym. So to not only be coming out on top in championships, but to be the gym that people do genuinely like to compete against, it means the world to us. So we're excited. We're happy. We haven't placed out of the top 2 all year across Canada and the US. So that just puts a lot more pressure on us for next year, honestly.
This upcoming weekend, the cheerleading squad will take 6 teams across the border to Helena, Montana for the Great Northern Cheer Competition. Good luck. The Interfaith Food Bank Society of Lethbridge is partnering with Loblaws for their annual Spring Food Drive. Food insecurity continues to be a big struggle in the country, and many people are having to rely on food banks to put food on the table. So food drives like this one are very important and are desperately needed. Donations can be collected directly at the No Frills location. Daniel McIntyre with the Interfaith Food Bank explains what some of the most needed items are right now.
We're always looking for those healthier items or those things that cost a little bit more. We like things like cereal, canned meats, canned fruits and vegetables, baby food, and anything of good protein or low salt content. Oh, it's been a campaign that they have been running with Food Banks Canada for many years now, and we're very lucky that most local food banks will be matched with the Loblaw store in their community.
The Spring Food Drive is on now until April the 16th. The City of Lethbridge says the Curbside Organics program is ready to roll, and the green card should be arriving sometime next week. Delivery will begin in the north and west areas of the city on April the 11th. Now that includes communities such as Gary Station and Country Meadows. Delivery will then move south through Lethbridge for the next month. City officials say all homes with curbside collection can expect their new green card to be delivered by May the 12th. Around 34,000 homes will soon be diverting organic waste from their black carts and from the city landfill. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints recently announced it will be building 15 new temples around the world, including one right here in Lethbridge. Temples will also be built in Iquitos, Peru, Jakarta, Indonesia, Hamburg, Germany, and San Jose, California. The president of the LDS, Russell M. Nelson, explained why these facilities are being built.
Making covenants and receiving essential ordinances in the temple, as well as seeking to draw closer to Him there, will bless your life in ways no other kind of worship can. For this reason, we are doing all within our power to make the blessings of the temple more accessible to our members around the world.
Now, there are also temples in Cardston, along with Calgary and Edmonton. Bridge City News reached out to staff from the LDS for comment on where and when the temple will be built in Lethbridge, along with a price tag, but have yet to hear back. For a full list of the temples being built, you're asked to visit our website at bridgecitynews.ca. 4 children were killed and 4 more were injured following an axe attack at a daycare in Brazil. Police say that a 25-year-old male suspect has been arrested. They say he jumped over the wall into the playground of the daycare before attacking the kids. He fled after teachers came to the children's defense. The suspect later turned himself in to police. No word yet on the motive for the attack. Meanwhile, there was more violence between Israelis and Palestinians at a holy site. Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem's Old City on Wednesday, firing stun grenades at Palestinians who hurled stones and firecrackers in a burst of violence during a sensitive holiday season. There are reports that Palestinian militants in Gaza responded with rocket fire on southern Israel, prompting repeated Israeli airstrikes. The fighting, which comes as Muslims mark the holy month of Ramadan and Jews prepare to begin Passover, raised fears of even more violence. Former U.S. President Donald Trump, who pleaded not guilty to 34 felony criminal charges of falsifying business records, delivered a defiant speech to cheering supporters in Florida. He even lashed out at a judge and his rivals following his indictment.
Beginning with the radical left, George Soros-backed prosecutor Alvin Bragg of New York, who campaigned on the fact that he would get President Trump. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. This is a guy campaigning. He wanted to get President Trump at any cost, and this before he knew anything about me, didn't know a thing about me. He was campaigning. As it turns out, virtually everybody that has looked at this case, including rhinos and even hardcore Democrats, say there is no crime and that it should never have been brought.
Former President Donald Trump secured another court victory. The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal sided with Trump in his effort to recoup legal fees from adult film star Stormy Daniels, who filed and lost a defamation suit against him. Daniels has been ordered to pay Trump's attorneys just over $120,000 in legal fees. Now, that's in addition to the more than $500,000 in court-ordered payments to Trump's attorneys she's already been ordered to pay. The Hockey Hall of Fame and Museum has unveiled a new exhibit showcasing the women's game. Hall of Famers Angela James and Jana Hefford were on hand to put the finishing touches on the exhibit in downtown Toronto, placing trophies named after them into a display case.
As you know, the Hockey Hall of Fame is so inclusive, and to be able to, capture every league, every association, women's hockey from the 1930s right up to the current times, and celebrate that, because that's what we're all in. We're all in women's hockey to elevate our game, and this is pretty special, I think.
When I had a chance to see the artifact list, I was excited to get in here and check it out. Some of the things from 1929, 1930s, history that I didn't know or don't know that well about the game. That's incredible. I didn't know I'd have a chance to actually put a trophy into a case until this morning. Like, what a great honor that is. I just think we have so much history in our game that people don't know about, and we're still making history. But as people learn more about the sport and get excited about the history of the sport, that's how you bring more people in and people get engaged and want to be a part of it.
Congratulations, ladies. If you ever get a chance, you must check out the Hockey Hall of Fame and Museum in downtown Toronto. Very cool place. Well, it was cool and cloudy in Lethbridge, but fortunately the mercury will be climbing by quite a bit this week. Full weather details are on deck. If you're praying for warmer weather for the Easter long weekend, your prayers may be answered for southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Roche is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, we should be seeing double-digit plus temperatures fairly soon?
Yes, and I would say very soon, beginning on Thursday. We're getting into the teens already. High of 13 on Thursday as we get to Good Friday, our long weekend there, starting it off with a high of 15 degrees, high of 12 on Saturday, looking at 16 for a high on Easter Sunday, Easter Monday, all the way up to 19 degrees, and then rounding out that 7-day forecast with a high of 11 degrees on Tuesday. So absolutely loving that. The average high for this time of year, 11 degrees. -3 is the average low. 22 was our high temperature back in 1969, and we were sitting at -21 back in 1975. That was the coldest on record for this day. 7 a.m. on the nose. Look at that. That's when the sun rose this morning, and our sunset this evening at 8:09 p.m. We are looking at now 13 hours and 9 minutes of daylight. Okay, a bit of a rainy one tomorrow on the west coast of Victoria, looking at a high of 11 degrees, about 80 winds, also in that Harrow Strait. Vancouver, heavy rains tomorrow, looking at 10 to 20 millimeters. 10 degrees for a high, 7 a high in Edmonton, and 11 degrees the high in Calgary. So looking at a pretty decent day across the rest of Alberta. Lots of sunshine as well. As we get to the rest of the prairies, high of 0 in Saskatoon, -6 for a high in Regina, -2 is the high in Winnipeg. Winnipeg also looking at periods of snow ending in the morning after that wicked spring snowfall that they had there, that storm with the Colorado low. That should be ending overnight, looking at just periods of snow in the morning. Toronto looking at heavy rains tonight, but sunshine tomorrow, high of 11 degrees, 10 degrees the high in Ottawa, looking at freezing rain tomorrow, but just freezing rain overnight, that is, and then periods of rain tomorrow. Montreal looking at periods of rain tomorrow as well. 9 degrees for a high. Much more freezing rain warnings happening in the East Coast, Atlantic Canada. So both Fredericton and Halifax looking at a freezing rain warning tomorrow. Fredericton could see that mixed with some ice pellets as well. 8 degrees for a high there. 7 the high in Halifax tomorrow. Charlottetown looking at showers mixed with wet flurries. 4 degrees for a high and 1 degree. And sunny in St. John's, Newfoundland with up to 60 winds. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Ridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
A surprise production cut by OPEC is lifting the spirits of Canada's energy sector. The Calgary-based Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers says it's possible the industry could see triple-digit oil prices by the fall. It was only a few short weeks ago that oil prices fell to the mid-$60 range due to concerns over bank failures in the United States. Canadian oil and gas companies raked in record profits last year due to the war in Ukraine and global fears about energy security, but prices were weighed down by uncertainty over global inflation. As we reported earlier this week, a WestJet Airlines pilot strike could result in passengers being stranded over the spring and summer months. The pilots launched a strike action vote against the airline, which they say pays them less than any other commercial airline in North America. The vote concludes April 18th, and if a strike does occur, it'll kick off just before the May long weekend. Captain Bernard Lewell, who represents the pilots in the union, says the airline lost over 200 pilots last year because of the poor pay and working conditions.
Back in 2022, we lost approximately 240 pilots from the WestJet group of companies. That most of them went to other airlines north or south of the border. This year alone, February, we had 42 pilots leave, and I just got the numbers for March, and it's approximately 50 pilots. Our CEO keeps talking about it being a growth story here at WestJet. If he truly wants a growth story, we need him to come to the table, negotiate in good faith, so that our pilots view WestJet again as a career destination, one where they want to come, they want to gain experience, and then they want to stay.
Make sure you catch the full interview with WestJet Captain Bernard Lewell and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up after business news. Britain's privacy watchdog has hit TikTok with a multi-million-dollar penalty for misusing children's data and violating others' protections for users' personal information. The Information Commissioner's Office has issued a $15.9 million fine to the popular video sharing app. The watchdog says TikTok allowed as many as 1.4 million kids in the United States to use the app, despite the platform's own rule of not allowing anyone under the age of 13 to set up an account. The company says it works to keep the platform safe and off limits to children under the age of 13. TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance are facing scrutiny in the West over concerns about privacy and cybersecurity risks. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 116 points on the day to finish at 20,159. The Dow was up 80 points to 33,482. The S&P 500 was down 10 points on the day to 4,090, and the Nasdaq was down 129 points to 11,996. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 37 cents to $80.34 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 3 cents to $2.14 US. Gold was up 6 cents to $2,020.68 US an ounce, and silver was even on the day at $24.94 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $11.51 per bushel, barley's at $9.17, canola's at $17.41, and corn is at $10.72 per bushel. Live cattle were up 80 cents to $168.40. Feeder cattle were down 13 cents to $197.83, and lean hogs were up $1.18 to $73.40. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.29 US. Recapping one of our top stories, the Alberta government wants to add about 100 new police officers to strictly deal with transit violence in both Calgary and Edmonton. Premier Danielle Smith says she directed Public Safety Minister Mike Ellis to get officers into high crime areas in both cities. Provincial data shows that between July and January, Edmonton's light rail transit system saw a 75% increase in criminal activity, while Calgary saw an increase of 46% between 2021 and 2022. We could very well see a WestJet pilot strike. Negotiations between the union and WestJet continue, with one of the biggest issues being pilot compensation. Now, some of the pilots say they're some of the lowest paid in North America. Coming up shortly, we shall hear from one of the pilots, Bernard Lewell, who will share the details with BCN's Jeanette Rocher. If you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. Discover how Lethbridge has played an important military role in the preservation of world peace and security by visiting the Lethbridge Military Museum at the Vimy Ridge Armory at the Lethbridge Airport. The museum is open to the public each Wednesday from noon to 4 p.m. Special arrangements for other days and times can be made by calling 403-328-6196. Admission is free, but donations are gratefully accepted. For more information, visit lethbridgemilitarymuseum.org. Lethbridge Sport Council's Indoor Roving Gyms program takes place Tuesdays at Emmanuel Lutheran Church from 6 to 7 p.m. and Thursdays at the Service Sports Center from 10 to 11 a.m. This program is for kids ages 5 and under and their caregivers. Come and enjoy an hour of fun and get active. Pre-registration is required and space is limited. For details and to register, visit lethbridgesportcouncil.ca/roving gyms. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Well, anyone who's traveled by air lately understands what a mess it's been, but possibly no one knows that better than the men and women flying the planes. The pilots of WestJet Airlines have been in contract talks with management about better working conditions, and those talks have dragged on. The Airline Pilots Association, or ALPA, is the union representing WestJet pilots, and Captain Bernard Lewell heads ALPA Canada's WestJet contingent. He joins me now from Vancouver to talk about what's happening over at WestJet and how this could affect potential air travel in the near future. Captain Lewell, thanks so much for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. Thanks, Jeanette.
Absolutely. Okay, so my understanding is that ALPA launched a strike authorization vote Monday. Can you maybe break down for me what led up to pilots taking this action? What are your grievances?
Okay, well, we started negotiating with the company on September the 2nd of 2022 last year. And it's been 6 months of negotiations, and basically the talks have bogged down. And getting into the actual grievances, there's kind of three primary areas that we're having difficulties with the company. The first is job protection. Right now we have two different companies within the WestJet group of companies that are flying 737s, Boeing 737s. A third company, Sunwing, the acquisition has been announced. And so that would be three that are flying under the WestJet group of companies, but all for different wages and working conditions. So that's the first grievance. We need that fixed. The second is pay and compensation. We're about 50% under the North American average. That gap has to narrow. And finally, we just need a better work-life balance. So less fatigue in scheduling and more acknowledgement that a lot of our pilots are commuters. And right now, they actually would like us to work 1 or 2 days more a month. We're already away from our families for over half the month. So those are the three big sticking points.
Okay, yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so the union has been in talks for a while now with the company, but how long exactly? So you mentioned it's been going on since September, so 6 months. And before that, was it kind of just boiling up to it? Like, how long have these bad working conditions happened for?
Well, we're currently under an arbitrated contract that was given to us in 2018. So it's been a bit of a 4-year process where we've been under those conditions, and our pilots need those issues addressed now. And what we really want is the company to come back to the table and negotiate in good faith. One thing that I can add is that our pilots are actually speaking with their feet right now. Back in 2022, we lost approximately 240 pilots from the WestJet group of companies. That most of them went to other airlines north or south of the border. This year alone, February, we had 42 pilots leave. And I just got the numbers for March, and it's approximately 50 pilots. Our CEO keeps talking about it being a growth story here at WestJet. If he truly wants a growth story, we need him to come to the table, negotiate in good faith, so that our pilots view WestJet again as a career destination, one where they want to come, they want to gain experience, and then they want to stay.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of low morale if you've got that many pilots leaving.
I will say when I started 18 years ago, WestJet was a career destination. It's a place pilots wanted to come and wanted to retire at. And that has changed somewhat over the last 18 years. We need that to change.
That's really unfortunate. What exactly is WestJet telling you regarding what you've been trying to come to the table with?
Really, they haven't been moving very much at all. They say they need they say that they need the ability to do what they're doing right now, without regard to the fact that what they're doing right now isn't working. We're actually losing, as I said, more pilots than we can hire. And the pilots that we're losing are the experienced pilots that we want to keep.
That is absolutely unfortunate. So my understanding is it all kind of came to a head last Friday when WestJet pilots picketed outside the company's headquarters. Am I right?
Yeah, so on Friday, we had an informational picket outside the WestJet headquarters. And the idea there was just to show the company that this pilot group is united, and we have the resolve that is required to bring them back to the negotiating table. So it was done on very short notice. We gave our pilots about 2 weeks heads up on it, and we had about 250 pilots show up. So it was absolutely a great display of unity, and especially every pilot that was there was on a scheduled day off. We made sure that no one was supposed to be flying that day. And I think management has heard it. And along with that same day, we announced the strike vote would be opening on the Monday.
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah, is this when the decision to launch that strike vote happened? And I was also going to ask you, what was the reaction from headquarters to all of this?
So far, I haven't heard anything from the headquarters. There was a few quotes that they were quoted in the paper as saying that they didn't agree with our stance, but I haven't actually had direct talks with them yet. We did go back to the negotiating room yesterday, so we are still in negotiations. And again, I'm hopeful that the strike vote and that show of unity last Friday, I'm very hopeful that will bring the management back to the table with a renewed vigor, one where they have the actual ability to make the changes that need to be changed.
Mm-hmm. Maybe explain the strike action vote a little bit. So it was launched on Monday, and my understanding is this will go on for a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, so the strike action vote, or the strike authorization ballot, will be open until the 18th of this month. After that, the timelines that we've already started back, we entered conciliation last month. Conciliation goes on for 60 days, which takes us till April 24th, and then we enter a cooling off period. The cooling off period is 21 days. At the end of that 21 days, the company is able to lock us out, or we are able to engage in work action up to and including a strike. So currently, on the 18th of this month, we'll get the results of the strike authorization ballot, but that just sets in play that on the 16th of May, work action can happen from either side. And you might notice that's right before the long weekend in May.
Yes.
And it could go into the summer. So we do want our passengers to be cognizant of this. We don't want them to be taken unawares as we get closer to that date.
Yes, I was just going to say, so like this possible strike is looming. What happens if it actually does? What does this mean for passengers who have booked travel on WestJet over that weekend and beyond?
Well, ultimately, your pilots want to serve our passengers. We want to be there flying the passengers to the destinations that they've booked. And we're hopeful, again, that the company will come back to the table and negotiate with us in good faith. That's what we need from them. But yeah, at this point in time, that's not happening. And I just need passengers to know the possible ramifications of what's going on now.
Wow. Any word from WestJet to the passengers? Would you know at all?
Not yet, other than they have said that this is just a normal part of the bargaining process. We don't agree with that. We don't. This was our last course of action, that where we had to call for a strike authorization ballot. I don't think it's a normal part of bargaining.
Right. Well, let's hope this doesn't go on for too long. Is the union willing to come to any compromise with the company, or vice versa? What have you heard?
No, absolutely. We're here to negotiate in good faith, and part of negotiating in good faith is to go back and forth. We do want to work with the company.
Yeah, and that's just it, because you said it yourself. I mean, pilots, you guys were born to fly. That's your passion. You don't want to be out there pounding the pavement with the picket signs. And you love your passengers, and I'm sure that you loved the company at one point, and you just want to see this resolved probably as much as anybody.
Absolutely. The pilots here, we have bought into the growth story that our CEO says WestJet is. And we want to be a part of that, but we need the company to come and address our concerns so that our pilots stop leaving and going to other airlines. Truly, this is a time to make a contract that is good for both the pilots and the company and the passengers.
Yeah. You had mentioned that WestJet was one of the lower paying one. How is that possible?
Well, it's just the North American average has gone up over the last few years, and WestJet, we've stayed where we are, and so that does have to be accounted for, yeah. And we've again got to negotiate a more of an industry standard contract here.
Mm-hmm. My understanding too is that other crew members, such as flight attendants, they belong to a different union, correct?
That's right. The flight attendants are with QP.
Yeah, but they're with QP, right? And my understanding also is that they're in full support of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I do believe our CEO tried to drive a wedge between the pilots and the flight attendants of the other groups a couple weeks ago in an internal video where he said he would rather park planes than pay the pilots what they're asking for. And I think that was a bit of he was trying to drive a wedge between the pilots and the other working groups. It didn't work. No, the flight attendants are fully in support of us.
Yeah, probably not a wise thing for an airline to say that they'd rather park planes than fly them.
No, yeah. when you're paying $40 million for the aircraft, the last thing you want to do is have that sitting on the tarmac. You need that in the air, generating revenue, and that's what the pilots want as well.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, Captain Lowell, that I didn't ask?
I'll reiterate that the strike or a lockout is not something that we look forward to, but it is a part of the Canadian Labor Code that we may need to take advantage of to ensure that the company comes to the table and negotiates with us in good faith. That's all we're asking for.
Captain Lewell, thanks so much for joining me today. I wish you the best with all of this, and hopefully some sort of an agreement is reached soon.
Thank you very much, Jeanette, for your time.
That was Captain Bernard Lewell, a pilot with WestJet Airlines and head of the Airline Pilots Association Canada's WestJet contingent.
Many would argue that families in the church have been the bedrock of our communities for generations. But, you know, as people mature and attitudes and values and webs sometimes flow, the family unit and churches continue to provide a solid foundation for communities, but sometimes those families struggle within communities. Joining us to chat about it and how the family and church still impact our health of our communities is Pastor Doug Shimoda with City Light Church here in Lethbridge. Pastor Doug, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Now, Pastor Doug, in your opinion, what benefits does the family unit really bring to our community?
You know, you got to look at the Bible, and the Bible says that God actually puts the lonely people into families. That's Psalm 68, verse 6. And the family unit really helps us to experience less loneliness, I believe. When you think about it, life is all about relationships, and the family is God's microcosm. Is his ordained way to do life, so our family can help us through the worst of times and the best of times. And I believe it's all about trying to build healthy bonds in a family, and that bonds of love that support and promote, good mental health, emotional health. Yeah, and if you look at all the studies, you'll find that spending time with family is so important because it actually helps reduce anxiety and stress. And right now it's so important that we have face-to-face communication as opposed to digital, and just face-to-face communication really helps to reduce times of anxiety, depression, mental health, and it helps us in so many ways physically as well. We think about families spending more time eating meals. I mean, meals are healthier made at home than bought at a fast food restaurant. We think about family times where we get together, do sports outside, hiking, gardening. All that helps to improve our physical health, our heart, our brain, our hormonal, immunal health. Yeah, you combine all those benefits, mental, physical, emotional benefits of family, and you see why family time is so important for us so that we can live a longer, healthier and a happier life.
You know, it's interesting too, in the Bible, it talks about no man or woman is an island. And like you talk about that, human interaction is so key, it's so vital for healthy relationships. But unfortunately, during the pandemic, many people, family members, were isolated, including our seniors. How detrimental was that? And kids not being able to go to school and hang out with their friends.
Yeah, that's so true. Disconnection, isolation causes a whole bunch of other problems, mental, physical, emotional. We were created to be relational beings. And without people around us to encourage us and to help us, no man is an island to themselves, and so we desperately need to seek different ways, especially through family, but developing good family relationships and time so that, that's what makes us better people all the way around.
Now, Pastor Doug, can you share with us some of the red flags you've witnessed as a pastor that can kind of lead to a breakdown of a family unit?
Well, I think probably one of the biggest red flags would be when people get too busy. It's busyness that causes disconnection. Less face-to-face time is just really not good for people. And it's one of the main causes for loneliness. If you think about social media, excess social media causes people to be less social and less relational than ever. And that's what causes a lot of problems. We get when we get away from face-to-face connections and times, that's a big red flag. It's just being too busy. Other things like financial stress. Financial stress causes problems It's one of the biggest reasons for marriage breakdown too as well. And so we need to be aware and work on these areas that could cause breakdowns in the family unit.
Now, in your mind, how is the church really well equipped to help families struggling to keep it all together?
You know, I love what Pastor Leon Fontaine, he talked about the culture that he developed in his churches called LAUGH. It's all about love, acceptance, and forgiveness. And I believe that's what we need to develop in our churches, and that's how the church can help people. You know, because people are looking for those three essential things. They're looking to be loved. They're looking to be accepted, forgiven, you know, of all their sins, and that's what God provides within His church. And the church is really an extension of Christ Himself. It's His arms, legs, feet, arms, you know. So yeah, and we truly need to be surrounded by relationships. You know, one of the best analogies about the type of relationships we need in our lives is like a brick. A brick within a wall is surrounded by six other bricks. Three types of relationships. There's 2 bricks above, two beside, 2 below. Well, we need people above us to help lift us up and to encourage us and to mentor us. And we need people beside us to walk with and encourage us. And we also need to be giving of ourselves to help other people in difficult times too as well. So there are all those types of relationships are relationships that we can get through the church to help us to keep it together.
And thank you so much for mentioning Pastor Leon Fontaine. We miss him so dearly, especially around here at Miracle Channel and Bridge City News. Pastor Doug, inflation is still hovering around 6%. The rising cost of living has impacted so many families across the country. What encouragement can you offer people during these very difficult times?
Financial responsibility is a big issue, and today we're seeing so many people credit card debt, so much debt, out of control debt. So as a church, we try to help people. Of course, we do that through our preaching. We have offering giving times, and we encourage people to follow the pathways of God's principles and giving and receiving. Giving doesn't make you have less. It actually allows God to give you more. So it's a principle of reaping and sowing. Whatever you sow, you're going to reap. So we try to help. And I think more and more churches are trying to help people with their financial debt and wealth creation. There's a great course that many churches have it's called Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey, and it's offering people a good plan to get rid of debt and to deal with bad spending habits and attitudes and learn how to budget and to save, because we as a church, we want to help people to prosper mentally, physically, and spiritually and financially too as well.
You know, some people use an acronym for the Bible, which is Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth, BIBLE. Now, can you give us an example of how the truths of the Bible have really helped families through difficult times?
Yeah, one thing that the Bible really helps people with is hope. It offers people hope. And you read the Bible and you keep reading consistently, and you find your faith and your hope just growing as you listen to those words and you try to put them into practice. And there's a scripture in Jeremiah 6, I believe, that talks about the ancient pathways that we're to walk in, and they're really the ancient principles of God from the beginning of time for mankind to walk on. And if we walk these paths, we'll walk into places of blessing and prosperity and protection. And the prophet encourages us to walk in the ancient pathways, walk in these ways, and it will go well with you. And that's the Old Testament. Even in the New Testament, Jesus talked about it's the truth that sets you free. He tells a great parable about 2 types of builders, the wise builders and the foolish builders. And he tells people to build their lives upon his words. He says, he who hears my words and he who puts them into practice is like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. So when the rains came down and the streams rose and the flood and the storms blew, that house did not fall. That life did not fall apart because it was built on the truths, the foundation of God's truths and God's word. So that's what we try to do as a church is to help people, with just principles and pathways. God's word is a lamp unto our feet, a light for our path.
So, Pastor Doug, where can a family member go in the Bible if they've recently lost a loved one and really need to find comfort from their grief? You know, the Holy Spirit's leading comfort.
Yeah, I believe that one of the best places to go to is start reading the Psalms. The Psalms is all about dealing with your heart and your emotions, and that's one of the best places to read. Psalms like Psalm 23, dealing with darkness and death, and trusting God. And there are so many scriptures throughout the Bible. Like the book of Isaiah is an excellent place too as well. And of course, the Gospel of John, the very words of Jesus. So many comforting words there too as well. So yeah, the Bible is a great book of comfort.
Sadly, I lost my nephew to a drug overdose about 5-6 years ago. My mother passed away a couple of years ago. Many families have lost loved ones. Can you share with us the practical ways a church community really helps members grow in their faith and help them through the grieving process?
Yes, I believe that God ordained church to be a place of healing and of wholeness and building lives and building families. And so we really encourage people to not follow the normal trend of attending church maybe just once a month or once every statutory holiday, but make it a regular part of their life. Being in a worship presence is actually being in a house of God. The local church is being in the presence of God. And that's being in the presence of God's love, God's power, a place of faith too as well. So that really helps people. We also encourage people to go beyond that, not just the Sunday morning, but we're a church of small groups, and many churches believe in, and having small groups, which are actually care groups where people can, build relationships, create authentic relationships, friendships of friends of faith to encourage one another and comfort one another. And it really helps when you're going through difficult times. We believe that we need people who care and love and can pray and connect us with God too as well.
Now, one of the serious issues families are facing right now is emotional stress due to a lot of the current events in society today. Just got out of the pandemic. We're going through all of the high inflation right now. So what are some of the things a believer can provide to friends struggling with stress, panic, and emotional pain, and even depression?
Yes, I think with everything that's happening, we look at social media, and we are so much more aware of all the negative stuff that has happened. So sometimes we've just got to shut down or to just narrow our access to things like social media and media involvement, and even the internet too as well, because we become aware of negative things that are happening all around the world. And Jesus said, when you hear of wars or rumors of wars, he said, don't let your hearts be troubled. He said, and he also says, in this world, you're going to have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. So as believers, we're always trying to point people to Jesus, that he's the one, that if you keep your eyes on Jesus, you're keeping your eyes on someone who could take you through, break you through all the darkness and all the problems. And he really is the answer to all the life's problems.
Do you think sometimes busyness keeps us away from keeping our focus on God too, keeping our eyes on Jesus? Whether it's, busy with our kids, taking them to piano lessons and swimming and hockey, and then being involved in everything, but spending time with the word of the Lord?
Yes, so true. And, it really is a discipline, and at first it doesn't happen easily, but it takes a great effort on the part of a believer in Christ to determine that I'm going to do my devotions today. Often we don't see the value of it at the very moment, but as we keep on continuously, reading the Word of God, it builds up our faith and developing this relationship with God through prayer. And we find out suddenly our awareness of God and his working in our lives becomes much more vibrant and real. So, and that's so important that we do that with each other. But the Bible also encourages each of us to spur one another on to love and good deeds. So that's that thing. We just so need each other. We desperately need friends of faith.
Let's talk about the human heart for just a moment now, Pastor Doug. Do you think that people have the same spiritual need now as they did back when Jesus walked the earth?
Oh, absolutely. You know, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And mankind is still the same. And God created mankind with a hole in their heart that only He can fill by His Spirit. So Jesus says, "Come to me." You got to come to me, and I can fill it. I'm the only one that can satisfy that deepest longings in your heart. I created you to have a personal relationship with you, and all the benefits of that relationship come through this personal relationship with God's Son, Jesus Christ. That's why He sent His Son, because we desperately needed to fill that hole in our heart.
And so many people, they're working overtime, trying to get ahead, trying to climb that corporate ladder. But what is it for a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his own soul, right? When you lose your focus, not spending time with God and your family. Now, are you finding in your capacity as pastor at City Light Church that people in our community are still looking for this rest that Jesus is talking about? Rest and replenish our souls?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter when you live or where you live. That's what we need. We need rest, and people need rest, physical rest, but we need rest in our soul, is right. Rest in our spirit. And that's what Jesus promises. He said, "I give you a peace, and I give you rest that the world cannot give." And we think about it, that peace and rest comes through a person. He's the Prince of Peace. And He tells us in another, like the book of Philippians in the New Testament is a great chapter. The chapter 4 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything with thanksgiving, by prayer and petition, give your prayers and requests to God." And then He says, when you do that, then this peace comes into your heart and mind, a peace that transcends all your heart, all understanding, will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. It's a powerful promise, but it's for us today.
Amen. Pastor Doug Shimoda from City Light Church in Lethbridge, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.